Your grandmother never used a cookbook. In 1955, 78% of British housewives prepared their evening meal without consulting any written recipe at all. No measurements, no timers, just knowledge passed down through watching, tasting, and doing. Number 17 on this list was so simple, most women could make it blindfolded, yet today's home cooks would not know where to start. Number 4 required nothing more than leftovers and a hot pan. Here is what the ready meal revolution does not want you to understand. Your grandmother could feed a family of 6 for less than the price of a cinema ticket. Before we begin, hit subscribe. Let's count down the 30 easy British meals that vanished when we stopped trusting our own hands. Number 30. Fried bread and dripping. Every 50s housewife knew this one without thinking. Slice yesterday's loaf thick, about an inch. Heat a tablespoon of saved beef dripping in a heavy frying pan until it shimmers. Lay the bread in the fat and press it down with a fish slice. Flip when golden. That's it. No recipe required because there was nothing to measure. The bread soaked up the dripping, turning crisp and savory, with that unmistakable beefy richness that margarine could never match. A slice cost perhaps a halfpenny in fat and bread. It appeared at breakfast alongside eggs, at tea time with a scrape of Marmite, or as a late supper when nothing else would do. Children learned to make it standing on kitchen stools, watching their mothers work. The knowledge transferred in minutes and lasted a lifetime. Today, most people under 40 have never tasted proper fried bread made in dripping. We lost it when we threw away the dripping jar, and with it went one of the simplest pleasures the British kitchen ever knew. Number 29. Cheese on toast. Not a toasty, not a melt. Proper cheese on toast was made under a roaring grill, with whatever hard cheese lurked in the larder. Your grandmother sliced bread, buttered it generously, laid thick slabs of cheddar on top, and slid the lot under the grill until the cheese bubbled, browned, and threatened to spill over the edges. She knew by the smell when it was ready, and by the way the cheese went from golden to spotted brown in seconds. A shake of Worcestershire sauce, a grind of pepper, and tea was on the table. The whole thing took perhaps 4 minutes. No recipe existed because none was needed. Cheese, bread, heat. Every woman knew the proportions by heart, adjusted for her own grill, her own cheese, her own family's preferences. The children who grew up on this simple supper now reach for microwave cheese singles, and something irreplaceable has been lost. Number 28. Eggy bread. The French call it pain perdu. Your grandmother called it eggy bread and made it without a moment's thought. Beat 2 eggs in a shallow dish with a splash of milk. Dip bread slices until soaked. Fry in butter until golden on both sides. Sweet or savory, depending on what followed. A sprinkle of sugar and a squeeze of lemon for pudding. A rasher of bacon alongside for tea. The measurements existed only in her muscle memory. How much egg felt right for 3 slices? How much milk made the mixture loose enough to soak, but not so thin it would not cling? She never wrote it down because she never needed to. Children stood on chairs and learned by doing, cracking eggs into the same chipped bowl their mothers had used, feeling the weight of the fork in their hands. That knowledge, once lost, does not come back from reading a recipe card. Monday's answer to Sunday's roast. Your grandmother gathered cold potatoes, leftover cabbage, perhaps a stray carrot or 2, and mashed the lot together with a fork. She shaped the mix into rough patties or spread it across a hot pan and fried it in bacon fat until the bottom crisped. And the kitchen filled with that unmistakable smell of brassicas meeting heat. There were no measurements, because there were never the same leftovers twice. Some weeks more potato, some weeks more greens. The trick was the fat and the patience. Press it down, let it catch. Flip when brave. Children could make this by the age of 10. The name came from the sound, that hissing protest as wet vegetables hit the hot pan. Today's home cooks buy frozen bubble and squeak patties from supermarket freezers, having lost the simple confidence to throw leftovers in a pan and trust the result. Number 26. Bread and milk, thrifty comfort food. When stomachs were unsettled or the budget stretched thin, your grandmother reached for the simplest supper of all. Tear bread into chunks in a bowl. Pour over warm milk. Add a pinch of sugar or salt, depending on household tradition. Eat with a spoon while the bread softens into something between porridge and pudding. It was nursery food, sickbed food, poor weak food. It required nothing but bread, milk, and a bowl. Yet it soothed, filled, and comforted in a way no ready meal could match. The ritual itself was the recipe, passed from mother to child in moments of care. By the 1980s, bread and milk had all but vanished from British tables, dismissed as old-fashioned, unsophisticated, or simply forgotten. We traded comfort for convenience and lost something gentler in the exchange. Number 25. Soldiers and eggs. Every child of the 1950s knew this breakfast, and every mother made it without thinking. Boil an egg for 3 to 4 minutes, depending on how you liked your yolk. Toast bread, cut it into strips, then line the soldiers up for dipping. Serve the egg in a cup, slice the top off, and let the children dip. No recipe existed because none was needed. Your grandmother knew her eggs, knew her cooker, and knew exactly how long to boil them to produce the perfect runny yolk for her family. Some liked them looser, some firmer. She adjusted by seconds, not by written instruction. The soldiers existed because children needed something to do with their hands, something to make breakfast feel like a game. Modern parents still serve this, but often from packets of pre-cut toast shapes, having lost the confidence to slice their own bread into strips. Number 24. Dripping toast. When the Sunday roast had been carved and the plates cleared away, your grandmother scraped the roasting tin. The golden fat, the caramelized meat juices, the dark, sticky bits from the bottom all went into a jar. Days later, spread cold on thick toast with a pinch of salt, it became the finest mid-morning snack the British kitchen ever produced. There was no recipe, because there was no technique. Spread and eat. The flavor came from the roast itself, from the quality of the fat, from the slow rendering of a joint cooked properly. Children fought for the toast with the meatiest dripping, the brown jelly at the bottom of the jar that tasted like sundae concentrated into a spoonful. We replaced this with margarine spreads marketed as healthy, and the British palate grew poorer overnight. Number 23. Tomatoes on toast. Tinned tomatoes heated in a small saucepan with a knob of butter and a shake of pepper, spooned over buttered toast. That was it. Supper in 5 minutes, from ingredients every larder held. Your grandmother might add a pinch of sugar if the tomatoes were too acidic, or a dash of Worcestershire if she felt fancy, but the base recipe required nothing more than heat and timing. Know when the tomatoes were hot enough. Know when the toast was ready. Serve before either went cold. This was the meal of tired evenings, of tight weeks, of children home from school with nothing else in the house. It cost pennies and satisfied completely. Today, the same tin of tomatoes sits on supermarket shelves, but the knowledge of what to do with it beyond pasta sauce has largely vanished. Number 22. Welsh rarebit. Not merely cheese on toast, but its aristocratic cousin. Your grandmother melted cheese in a small pan with a splash of ale or milk, a teaspoon of mustard, and a shake of Worcestershire sauce. She stirred until smooth, then poured the molten mixture over toast and flashed it under the grill until bubbling. The proportions lived in her hands. how much cheese looked right, how much liquid made it pourable without going thin. The mustard was added by instinct, tasted and adjusted. No two women made it quite the same way, and no recipe captured the particular magic of any single kitchen. Welsh rarebit was pub food, supper food, something on toast elevated to minor art. The ready-made versions in supermarket chill cabinets bear no resemblance to the real thing, and another generation grows up not knowing what they are missing. Number 21st. Porridge. Oats, water, salt. Cooked low and slow, stirred with a wooden spurtle until thick and creamy. Your grandmother never measured, because measuring missed the point. She knew by the look of it, by the way it fell from the spoon, by the thickness that suited her family, built up over years of morning practice. Some households took it with milk and sugar. Others, particularly in Scotland, insisted on salt alone. The debates were fierce, the traditions unshakable, and the method entirely intuitive. Quick oats and instant porridge sachets have replaced the slow morning ritual, and with them went the knowledge of how to cook oats properly, the patience to stand and stir, and the simple skill of reading the pot. Number 20. Milk pudding. Rice, semolina, tapioca, or sago simmered in milk with sugar until thick and comforting. Your grandmother made whichever version her mother had made, learned at the stove as a child, repeated without thought for decades. The proportions were approximate, enough grain to thicken, enough milk to cover, enough sugar to sweeten. She knew by the texture when it was ready, by the way it coated the wooden spoon, by the skin that formed on top if left to stand. Baked or stovetop depended on the household, on the tradition, on what grandmother had always done. The skill required nothing more than attention, yet today's home cooks reach for tinned rice pudding, having lost the confidence to make something so simple from scratch. Number 19. Mashed potatoes. Boil until soft. Drain. Mash with butter and milk until smooth. Every housewife in the 1950s could do this, blindfolded. Yet the technique held secrets that separated good mash from great. Your grandmother knew which potatoes were floury enough to fluff. She knew how much butter was generous without being wasteful, how much milk made it creamy without going slack. She mashed by hand with a fork or a masher, feeling the texture come together, stopping at the moment of perfection. No food processor, no written ratios, just years of muscle memory and the knowledge that good mash required attention, not automation. Instant mashed potato flakes appeared in the 1960s, promising convenience, delivering mediocrity, and slowly eroding the skills that made the real thing possible. Number 18. Panhagaty. Layers of sliced potato, onion, and cheese, fried in a heavy pan until the bottom crisped and the cheese melted into golden strings. A Northumberland dish made without recipe or fuss. Your grandmother sliced by eye, layered by instinct, and knew by the smell when the bottom had caught properly. The flip was the moment of truth, turning the whole thing out onto a plate and sliding it back into the pan to crisp the other side. Some households added bacon. Others kept it simple. The method passed from mother to daughter in kitchens across the Northeast, surviving only in the memories of those who watched and learned. Panhagaty cannot be bought. It can only be made by someone who knows how. Number 17. Chip butty. Hot chips piled between two slices of buttered white bread. Salt. Vinegar. Eat immediately. This was the simplest meal in the British repertoire, requiring nothing more than timing. Your grandmother knew that the chips had to be hot, the butter generous, the bread soft enough to compress around the filling without tearing. She never wrote this down because it would have seemed absurd. Yet the chip butty was Friday night supper for millions, the taste of the chippy brought home and made portable, eaten standing at the kitchen counter before anyone could claim a share. Today's children grow up on oven chips that could never match the real thing, and the butty has faded from regular rotation to occasional nostalgia. Number 16. Onion gravy. Slice onions thin. Fry low and slow in butter or dripping until soft and golden, perhaps 20 minutes over a gentle flame. Add flour to make a roux. Pour in stock or vegetable water. Simmer until thick. Season with salt and pepper. Your grandmother made this without a recipe because the technique was the recipe. Watch the onions soften. Feel when the flour has cooked out. Judge the thickness by eye. This gravy accompanied sausages, chops, liver, toad in the hole, anything that needed richness and depth. Granules and powder have replaced the slow-cooked onion gravy in most kitchens, and something essential has been lost. The convenience gained cannot match the flavor sacrificed. Number 15. Cauliflower cheese. Steam or boil the cauliflower until just tender. Make a white sauce. Add cheese. Pour it over the cauliflower, then grill until bubbling. The sauce needs only flour, butter, milk, and cheese, made by the roux method every housewife knew by heart. Melt the butter, add the flour, and cook for a minute. Pour in the milk gradually, stirring constantly. Season, then add the cheese at the end. Your grandmother knew by the texture when the sauce was ready, by how it coated the spoon, by the thickness that would cling to the cauliflower without drowning it. No packet sauce mix, no jar of ready-made, just basic ingredients and the confidence to combine them. That confidence has been systematically undermined by decades of marketing for convenience products, and the skill of making white sauce now feels like lost arcana to most home cooks. Number 14. Corned beef hash. A tin of corned beef, diced. Cold potatoes, chopped. Onion, sliced thin. They were fried together in a hot pan until the potato crisped and the corned beef softened into the mix. It was served with brown sauce and a fried egg on top if the budget allowed. There were no measurements because the dish used what you had, half a tin or a whole one. More potato or less. The method was the same. High heat, patience, and the courage to let it catch without stirring too often. Every housewife knew this recipe by heart because it was less a recipe than a survival skill. Today, corned beef itself has become unfamiliar, and the hash that once appeared weekly on tables across Britain has all but vanished. Number 13. Toad in the hole. Sausages baked in Yorkshire pudding batter. The recipe seems simple, yet your grandmother made it entirely without written instruction. She knew the batter by look, the resting time by habit, the oven temperature by the feel of the door. She sizzled fat until smoking, poured batter around the sausages, and trusted the result. The pudding rose around the meat, golden and crisp at the edges, soft in the middle. The proportions lived in her memory, refined over years of practice. 4 ounces of flour, 2 eggs, half a pint of milk. But she never weighed or measured. She cracked eggs and added flour until it looked right, poured milk until the consistency felt familiar. That intuition, passed from mother to daughter, cannot survive in a culture that demands precise measurements for everything. Bread pudding, stale bread torn into pieces, soaked in tea or milk, mixed with dried fruit, sugar, spices, and a beaten egg. Baked until firm and golden. This was the ultimate waste-not dish, transforming bread too old to eat into pudding, too good to resist. Your grandmother made it without a recipe, because the recipe was simply, use what you have. More bread meant a bigger pudding. More fruit meant a richer one. The spices were whatever lurked in the cupboard, cinnamon or nutmeg, or a combination. She knew by the texture when the mixture was wet enough, and by the time in her oven when it was set. Bread pudding has become a bakery specialty rather than a household staple, and the skill of rescuing stale bread has largely been forgotten. Number 11. Scotch broth, a handful of pearl barley, leftover lamb bones, whatever vegetables the larder held, simmered for hours until the kitchen steamed and the broth turned thick and nourishing. Scotch broth was not a dish, but a method. Use what you have. Add water. Wait. The barley swelled and thickened the liquid. The bones gave up their flavor. Carrots, turnip, leek, and cabbage softened into the broth until it was impossible to distinguish them. Some batches were thicker than others. Some were meatier. Every pot was different, and every pot was right. The soup sustained Scottish households through winters that seemed endless, made from ingredients that cost almost nothing. Today, tinned soup has replaced the slow, simmered pot, and another essential skill has slipped away. Number 10. Fish cakes. Cooked fish, flaked, mashed potato, cold, mixed together with parsley and a beaten egg, shaped into rounds, coated in breadcrumbs, fried until golden. This was the fate of Friday's leftover fish, transformed by Saturday into something crisp and satisfying. Your grandmother made fish cakes without a recipe because the proportions were obvious: enough potato to bind, enough fish to taste, enough egg to hold. The skill was in the frying, knowing when the oil was hot enough, when the cakes were ready to flip, when the crust had turned from pale to perfect. Frozen fish cakes from supermarket freezers bear no resemblance to the homemade ones that once appeared on tables across Britain, and the art of making them has faded with each passing generation. Number 9. Liver and onions. Slice the liver thin, dust it with seasoned flour, fry it fast in hot fat, then remove it. Soften the onions in the same pan, return the liver, and serve immediately. The whole thing took perhaps 10 minutes and required no recipe at all. Your grandmother knew that liver must be cooked quickly, or not at all. She knew that onions needed time to sweeten, and that the gravy formed itself from the pan juices and flour. Measurements were irrelevant. How much liver the family needed, how many onions were in the vegetable rack. The technique passed through generations by watching and doing. Liver has become unfamiliar meat to modern cooks, and the simple skill of frying it properly has largely been lost. Number 8. Shepherd's pie. Monday's leftover roast lamb was minced, then fried with onion and stock until saucy. It was topped with mashed potato and baked until golden. Your grandmother never measured. The pie used whatever meat remained, stretched with whatever vegetables needed eating. More gravy for less meat, more potato for hungry children. The dish adapted to circumstances and required no recipe beyond the basic method of meat, gravy, mash, and heat. Cottage pie followed the same principle with beef. Both have survived into the modern era, but increasingly they come from packets and jars rather than the roasting tin and the leftover bowl. The intuitive version made from Sunday's scraps without thought or measurement belongs to a fading generation. Number 7. Bacon and eggs. The full English breakfast in miniature. Bacon in the pan first. Eggs cracked into the fat. Fried until the whites set and the yolks stayed runny. Served with bread and a cup of tea. No recipe could be simpler, yet your grandmother's bacon and eggs tasted better than anything you've made since. She knew her cooker, knew her bacon, knew exactly when to crack the eggs, when to baste them with hot fat, when to slide them onto the plate. The skill was invisible because it looked like nothing at all. Just breakfast, just routine. just decades of practice condensed into a 5-minute meal. We have lost the patience to learn our cookers so intimately, and the bacon and eggs suffer for it. Number 6. Cheese and potato pie. Sliced potatoes layered with cheese and onion in a pie dish. Milk poured over, and the pie was baked until the top crisped and the inside turned creamy. Your grandmother layered by instinct, knowing how much cheese was generous without being wasteful, and how much milk would be absorbed without leaving the dish swimming. The baking time depended on her oven and was learned through years of practice. The result was comfort food of the highest order, simple and satisfying, and almost entirely forgotten. Modern convenience has no equivalent, and the skill of making cheese and potato pie has faded with the generation that needed it most. Number 5. Spotted dick. Suet, flour, sugar, and currants, mixed to a stiff dough. Shaped into a roll. Steamed for hours until dense and tender. Served with hot custard poured over. The recipe seems precise, yet your grandmother made it without measuring anything at all. She knew by the feel of the dough when it was right, by the heft of the roll when it was heavy enough to slice, by the time in the steamer when it was cooked through. Spotted dick was Sunday pudding, school dinner, the taste of childhood for generations. The pre-made versions in supermarket chill cabinets cannot capture the homemade texture, and the skill of making suet pudding has largely been lost. Number 4. Rissoles. The ultimate leftover rescue. Cooked meat, minced, mixed with mashed potato and onion, bound with egg, shaped into patties, coated in breadcrumbs, and fried until golden. This was the dish that used everything, that turned the scrag ends of the week into something crisp and satisfying. Your grandmother made rissoles without a recipe because the recipe was simply use what you have. More meat or less. More potato or less. The binding was intuitive, enough egg to hold without making it wet. The frying was familiar, the same technique she used for fish cakes, cutlets, and everything else that needed a golden crust. Rissoles have vanished almost entirely from the British table, and the word itself sounds old-fashioned to modern ears. Yet they were the epitome of thrifty cooking, requiring nothing more than leftovers and the confidence to combine them. Number 3. Drop scones. Mix flour, sugar, baking powder, egg and milk into a thick batter. Drop spoonfuls onto a hot, greased griddle. Flip when bubbles rise. Serve warm with butter. Your grandmother made drop scones without a recipe because the method was the recipe. Mix until thick, cook until golden. The proportions were adjusted by eye, the consistency familiar from hundreds of Sunday afternoons. Drop scones were tea-time food, served warm from the griddle with butter melting into every pore. They required nothing more than basic ingredients and a hot, flat surface, yet they have disappeared from most kitchens, replaced by packet pancakes and frozen waffles. The loss is greater than it seems. Number 2. Jam tarts. Roll the pastry thin. Cut rounds with a glass. Press them into patty tins. Add a spoonful of jam to each. Bake until golden. The simplest baking project made without a recipe by generations of mothers teaching daughters the basics. Your grandmother made her own pastry by rubbing fat into flour until it resembled breadcrumbs, then adding cold water until it came together, and rolling without fuss or measurement. The jam tarts that resulted were imperfect and irregular, each one slightly different from the last. That imperfection was the point. Children learned to bake by making jam tarts, feeling the dough in their hands, knowing by touch when it was ready. The skill has been lost to ready-rolled pastry and pre-made tart cases, and another generation grows up without knowing how simple real baking can be. Number 1. Sunday roast. The centerpiece of British cooking, made without a recipe for centuries. Your grandmother chose her joint at the butcher's counter, brought it home, put it in the oven, and roasted until done. She never weighed, never timed to the minute, never consulted a chart. She knew by the look of the meat when it was ready, by the feel of the flesh when she pressed it, by the smell that filled the kitchen as it cooked. The potatoes went around the joint in the last hour. The Yorkshire pudding followed its own timing, batter rested by habit rather than by instruction. The gravy made itself from the pan juices, thickened with flour, seasoned by taste. Every element of the Sunday roast was intuitive, passed from mother to daughter through watching and doing. No recipe could capture the particular knowledge of one woman's oven, one family's preferences, one kitchen's rhythms. The ready meal roast dinners that fill supermarket freezers cannot replicate what was never written down. And as the generation that cooked by instinct fades, we lose something that recipes alone cannot replace. Here is my challenge to you. This week, make one meal without looking anything up. Not the precise measurement, not the exact timing. Trust your hands, trust your eyes, trust the knowledge that lives in your kitchen whether you realize it or not. Start with something simple. Cheese on toast. Eggy bread. A pot of porridge stirred until it looks right. Then come back and tell me what happened. Tell me if you remembered more than you thought you did. Because your grandmother's hands are in your hands. Her knowledge lives somewhere in your memory, waiting to be awakened. The supermarkets want you to believe you need their products, their packets, their precise instructions. Your grandmother knew better. Now you do too.